The Fantasy Fullback Dive is thrilled to welcome on for the first time Peter Overzet at Peter Overzet on Twitter, where he labels himself American Flag Sports Fan 2000 to 2020 American Flag. He's a burgeoning TikTok star at P Overzet, and his fantasy work is featured on Roto Grinders in 4for4 Fantasy, including the TakeCast Pod and the LOLs show. Welcome to the show, Pete. How's it going, my man?
I'm doing well, dude. I'm excited to do the show. You know, sometimes you change your bio as a joke and then don't realize you're going to go on a show and they're going to read your bio and people are going to be really confused since it was a very specific inside reference. But, you know, that's the kind of stuff I do.
Oh, absolutely. No, I mean, who's not an American flag sports fan from the last 20 years? It's huge. It's a huge thing to claim. I'm not even sure what the bio says these days. I feel like it switches up all the time, but I got a good chuckle out of it, so I liked it. But yeah, I wanted to have you on just because, you know, we're doing our Fantasy Wolves sequence and we've had some great guests. And I think, you know, more so than any other analyst in the biz, you really have your finger kind of on the pulse of the culture side, for lack of a better word, of just, you know, what everybody's saying and how to boil it down. And it's just all so hilarious. So I really wanted to get you on because I don't think anybody else kind of sees that underbelly, if for lack of a better word, of fantasy, the Roto underbelly. Maybe that's the breakout site right there. But you're so good at it, and I'm thrilled to have some pretty fun segments here with you. So thanks again for your time. You ready to dive into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. So before we get into some of the segments I planned, I always like to ask all the Wolves kind of, what was your path here, and if you had some advice for others to kind of break into the industry. So what's it kind of looked like for you so far, and what would you give anybody that's also trying to make a name for themselves in the fantasy game? You know, what's your advice to them?
Yeah, my path has been, I guess, kind of a winding road. I met some friends doing improv comedy probably 6 or 7 years ago, and we found out that a few of us all liked fantasy football. And the theater that we did improv at, they have kind of like an open submission process where you can pitch shows. And so people are always doing themed shows. And we were like, you know, what if we did a fantasy football comedy show? Sure, it would have a very small audience, but we all like this. We like making jokes about it. Let's do it. So we kind of launched a podcast and a live show that we did for a few years. And we would do kind of really overly produced stuff. We would do sketches, parody songs, like all this kind of stuff. And from there, I kind of just got more involved meeting people in the fantasy space and then just started doing kind of other projects, other podcasts. And yeah, so I would say that was kind of the start. It all definitely started with a comedy background, and here we are today.
That's awesome. And what kind of, let's dive into that a little bit, like acting. What was that like? How long did you kind of pursue the improv game? Are you still, you know, doing improv and whatnot? And how do you see that kind of influencing your fantasy work now?
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge influence on what I do because I hadn't really ever made comedic content until I started doing improv. And I think the cool thing was it gave you the confidence, or sometimes it even feels like the permission that you can create stuff, because it can be scary, right, to put yourself out there and to have something bomb or flop. But I did hundreds of improv shows. Sometimes it would be a full house. Sometimes there would be 2 people in the audience. Sometimes you would bomb. You would literally do a 20-minute set and maybe get 1 or 2 chuckles the whole time. So when you build up that resolve of knowing, look, I don't care. I'm going to do my thing. I know I'm getting reps. I'm getting better. I'm learning. And I don't care what the reaction is. That kind of gives you confidence to try things. And I guess that's probably the biggest thing that I've taken away from it, is just the confidence in, you know, what I find funny. And you know what, I'm just going to put it out there. If other people find it funny, great. If not, we'll move on and we'll learn from it.
Absolutely. I mean, I know I'm speaking for a ton of people where they say, you know, this is the funniest fantasy content out there. All my buddies always will send, like, did you see this one from Pete? And it's always going around the group chat. So it's definitely landing, at least in the fantasy niche for sure. Is acting, before we keep diving into the fantasy stuff, if acting, is that something you would go at full time if opportunities presented itself? Are you kind of more so on the fantasy pursuit now? Is one more of a dream than the other, I guess? I don't know exactly where I'm going with that, but do you feel more passionate to one or the other, or do you kind of like the marriage you're finding between the two?
Yeah, I do, because I do kind of like the marriage because I've never thought of myself fully as a comedian or an improv actor, and I've also never thought of myself fully as a fantasy analyst. So it's the hybrid that kind of works for me. But yeah, I mean, one thing that I learned about improv is, you're never going to necessarily quote unquote become a funnier person. Like we all have our sensibilities and our baseline that's always going to inform, whatever our content is. But when you do improv over and over and over, you become a better actor. And you can reap the rewards of that then, whether it's just in your confidence when you're on camera and you're talking, or you feel comfortable going without a script. And then also, if I'm doing characters, I don't even consider myself, I'm not a good character actor, I'm not a good impressionist, but you learn like, okay, I can do a little bit with this voice, I can do a little bit here. So it does give you the confidence to kind of explore and push out beyond your world. The phrase they always say in improv is you wear those characters as a thin veil, where it's like you're not transforming into this person, but it's just enough to make the audience get to believe it and suspend the disbelief for a little bit.
Awesome. Yeah, we're going to kind of be playing on that later on in the segment here, where we have 3 kind of fantasy improv, and you were very adamant, no sending you any type of hints as what it is. You wanted to do it off the cuff, which I love. The 3 segments are going to be the industry impersonation, where you're kind of saying we'll put on those veils of a few different characters I've scripted up here and see how you take them. We'll also do a round of music association, where I've queued up a few songs and just whoever it brings to mind from a fantasy perspective and why, you'll toss out that. And then also just some adjectives. Today I went with purely taste adjectives, just to give you somewhat of a hint as to what's coming and what a couple word association with that type of word. So that's kind of previewing what we have coming. I think it's going to be a fantastic time. But the good thing is it's not just humor with you. I feel like you do bring a ton of what makes the humor even that much more impactful in a way is the analysis you give is so spot on, whether you're making fun of all the analysts in the industry or if you're just giving really solid DFS advice. So I did want to kind of ask you a little bit about your DFS process. I know, I don't know if that's more of your focus than redraft or not, but I've read a bunch of your content on it. And I just kind of wanted to give our listeners a sense of what does someone like you typically do in a new week of DFS? Do you have any kind of routines or best practices you follow when you're making your lineups?
Yeah, and I mean, I should preface all of this. I'm pretty sure I can check my Roto tracker. I'm a lifelong losing DFS player. So, but I will say I have a very open mind, and I'm always trying to learn and get better. And I will say my process has even changed since this past NFL season, mainly in that I was really focused on like a single entry lineup, making one lineup. But what would happen to me when I did that is my brain would just get tied in a knot because my default approach to DFS is I like being contrarian, but I ended up falling into the territory I call galaxy brain, where I'm too contrarian. I'm overthinking it, just trying to like be 9 steps ahead when I only need to be 2 steps ahead. And what has actually helped me is then through this off season, I've actually started doing more mass multi-entry stuff. I really like 20 max, but I'll even do the 150 max. Not the big one. I don't have that kind of a bankroll, but I'll do the mini maxes and stuff. And what that has done is it's allowed me to think more about exposures, more about ownership, and less about just making one specific lineup that I put all my eggs in that basket. And in doing so, I think it's allowed me to become a better player, because obviously the goal with DFS, right, is we're trying to make the best possible optimal lineup that is also unique and not owned by a lot of other players. So when you make one lineup, it can sometimes be hard to get that balance. But when you make a ton, you can really get the exposures right and balance your ownership levels. So yeah, I'm really excited about this NFL season and kind of approaching it more from an MME perspective, which I've never really done before.
Absolutely. Do you kind of focus more on GPPs, 50-50s, a mix of both, or and in that hindsight, is there ever a single day that stands out to you as like that was my best or worst DFS day of all time?
Yeah. So I never play cash games. I mean, I guess I should say every once in a blue moon, like if I feel like there's just this perfect optimal lineup or whatever that I want to roll out there, I'll do it. But on the most part, like my relationship with DFS, I want to be a profitable player, obviously, but even the best DFS players, their cash game win rate is like between 55 to 60%. And then when you include the rake, I mean, the margins on that, the ROI, it's like a 2 or 3% ROI. So you got to be playing really big volume to actually be making money consistently. And it just doesn't, it's not fun for me. Yeah. I want to hit that GPP, and I'm okay knowing I'm going to lose a lot of slates because I'm playing contrarian. I'm only playing tournaments. I'm going to be bleeding money, but hopefully I hit a few of these and it allows me to keep playing tournaments. I actually would say I had my best DFS day right at the beginning of quarantine. I started playing League of Legends DFS, and there was I actually think it's kind of interesting as it pertains to NFL DFS. As an example, like, so everyone knows quarterback and wide receivers in NFL are highly correlated, right? As far as production. I believe if you look at the correlation, it's like a 0.3, which is a really strong correlation. So to give you an idea of League of Legends, you can play up to 2 teams. So you could do 4 guys from one team, 3 on the second. The correlation of all the players on a winning team is 0.8 or higher. So basically, you would be dumb if you didn't stack as many guys from the same team as possible, because if the team wins, they're all going to do well. So that correlation is so strong, and there was a few weeks there where the entire player pool hadn't caught up to that idea, and I was doing really well just playing 4-3, 4-3s, and I won one of their big $33 GPPs. I think it was like a $3,000 score. So that was a very fun morning after being a low-stakes DFS player playing NFL, and then it's like I'm watching these Asian kids play video games, and that's how I won money. So that's life for you.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Is there one specific player that you're like, this, I'm indebted to you for my wonderful 3K day that just lit it up for you?
What's so sad about this is I played so many League of Legends slates that I don't even know if I can remember who was on that roster. I would have to look into that. Yeah, I don't have like a faker T1 jersey in my house, though. I kind of wish I did.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's addiction at its finest too. Playing League of Legends fantasy there to fill the void of no sports. I absolutely love it. I'm sure Korean baseball lineups and all that stuff. It's just, what else do we have at these days and times? Hopefully, it'll all come back sooner than later. In when you're constructing your lineups, not from a League of Legends perspective necessarily, because I don't know how many of our listeners will gain too much from that, but when you're constructing your NFL lineups, I know you said you're trying to get a lot of variance now, and you're going to take a new approach coming into this season a little bit, but is there any type of like rules or truths you hold true? Like, I need to pay up at running back, and I'm always going to have 3 running backs no matter what, or I definitely need to stack, and it doesn't matter what quarterback I go with. I will always have a receiver in my lineup if I'm going with X player from X team. Or do you kind of just, is it different and malleable every week? How do you kind of approach it in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, this is something I did say, because I do think I've gotten better as a DFS player. I used to, I think, prescribe to those kind of set rules more often. Like, I would be like, I always want to pay down at defense. And I think that still might be true, but I now think of it in a different way. Whereas when I was making one lineup, it's like you're either have 100% exposure or 0 exposure. So I've thought about it less as like, when I used to think about a fade, in my head, I was like, I'm fading this guy everywhere. But what I realized is, in like looking at exposures and when you run a lot of lineup, a fade can mean obviously just having less than the field. Like, if there's a popular running back punt play, he steps in, I don't even know, say it's Brian Hill without Devonta Freeman last year, and he's 4,500. My gut instinct as a DFS contrarian player is like, I'm fading Brian Hill. But if he is such a good points per dollar play, I might not be able to avoid him in all of my lineups. Like, that would just be a bad process. So old me would have been like 0%. New me, I have 20 lineups. Say the field's going to have him at 50%. I'm going to come in at 10 or 15% in case he does explode. I still have outs to make money. So that's kind of how my DFS thought process has been evolving. And again, it's all a work in progress.
Love it. And in addition to, feel free to pump any of your own tools or tips that you help produce for owners, but is there anything you also gravitate towards from lineup builders or any of that you might recommend that our viewers or listeners check out here?
Yeah, I mean the tools I really like. So one thing I love, Roto Grinders has this Chrome extension, and when you're in the lobby for DraftKings and FanDuel, it will show you where how much of the money is going to the top percent. Now I'm messing it up exactly, but it shows you the distribution, so you can really quickly evaluate how good a pay structure is. It also shows you how much overlay there is currently. So say if a contest is slow to fill and at lock, it updates in real time, and you can see, look, oh, there's going to be $2,000 of overlay, which means not only no rake, but there's extra money essentially in the prize pool. This is a contest I want to get into. So I really like that Chrome extension. I think Osimo does an incredible job with his tools. He's recently started doing some stuff where he looks at like top 6 percentages for, what is the percentage chance this golfer say wins or, is in the top lineup. And that's really useful to people who are hand building lineups, I think. So yeah, those are a couple of the tools. And then, for season-long stuff, I just love the guys at RotoViz. I think they do such a good job, and they have some really good DFS tools as well over there. So yeah, those are the guys I'll cape up for right now.
Absolutely. And so you gave us some industry giants, Osimo, RotoViz, and people for everyone to consider. Is there any specific analysts, whether you've worked with them or just people in general, you always like to go to and check who is this person on this week? Who are some wolves that you really like and respect in this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just a good point in general, that if you are trying to learn, just seeing what the best players are doing with their lineups, and you can go to, here's another tool on Roto Grinders, they have their results DB, their database, and you can go and search a contest like the Millie Maker, type in a high stakes DFS player, and you can look at all of his lineups. You can see, oh, he's punting at here, or oh, he's leaving all this salary on the table, and you can really learn a lot from that. So I in the past couple months, I started doing a weekly show, you mentioned it, Lulz, with Brian Hooper. If you play DFS, you will recognize his screen name. It's Brick75, and I would say him and Osimo are, pretty consistently the two best DFS players, like regardless of sport. And so those are two guys that I'm constantly paying attention to, trying to learn from. And Osimo does these kind of lineup building shows that he does, where I really like watching that because he kind of shows his process. So yeah, those are two guys that I definitely pay attention to because if you want to be the best, you got to see what the best are doing. Absolutely.
What's the Brickshaw? What was his handle one more time? I just wanted to write that one down.
Yeah, it's BRIC75, and I do I'll get a plug in. We do a weekly show on Wednesday nights on his YouTube and my Periscope, and it's just kind of like DFS lifestyle, and we'll talk about whatever slate is coming up. So we've been doing some PGA recently because those are on Thursdays. So yeah, check it out if you'd like.
Wednesday, and what time was that? I'm sorry.
We do it every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern.
8 p.m. Eastern. Awesome. Yep. Awesome. And my last question before we get into kind of the fun improv stuff here is, redraft wise, I always like to ask, we're trying to build our formula for evaluation and how to weigh certain factors that go into fantasy success, whether that's individual ability, is it usage, is it the surrounding team and the coach involved. So if you were kind of making a formula for fantasy success, what are some of the factors that you would weigh the most heavily, or how would you kind of grade certain indicators to success?
Yeah, so I almost all of my thoughts about fantasy football, as far as from a process standpoint, do come from RotoViz and the research those guys do over there. And the reason I love RotoViz is because they back test all of their information. So they're not just saying, we think this works out. They're looking at what are the win rates for best ball? So based on construction, and they're looking at, okay, where is the cohort of breakout wide receivers? So some of the, principles that they've honed in on over the years that I still think are exploitable are like second year wide receivers. That is when those guys break out. And if you can find the wide receivers that were efficient, that are set to get more volume, that is a really good way to make a profit. Like a great example last year was a Cortland Sutton. I mean, he was going in the 8th or 9th round of drafts, and he was free money. DJ Chark too. These are just, if all you did was just blindly draft second year wide receivers, like after the 6th round, just kind of stockpiling them, you would have a really good hit rate. So those are guys I'm looking at this year. I'm thinking a lot about buying low on N'Keal Harry. McCole Hardman, I know, is kind of a buzzy guy right now, but when you consider everything about his peripherals, he's one of those targets. So yeah, I'm looking at those kind of things. What are the macro trends that have shown to be real over the years? And then trying to get in the weeds and see how I can apply that to the current year.
Absolutely, yeah. RotoViz is a fantastic site for all that. We're excited. We're having Curtis Patrick come on within the next week or two. So he's a giant with a lot of that. I know he had an article on like DJ Moore, and he even broke it down to like age, and he got so granular, but it was clearly great data that was predicting these trends. So that's an awesome site to shout out there. So let's get into now kind of the second part here, our future segments, where we're going to do a little bit of improv with you.
Okay.
As I was kind of hitting at the top, I think, one of my favorite posts of yours was the Dynasty guy unveils his rookie ranks. It kind of, you just nailed it. You caught what everybody was saying about everybody down to a science. It was just like almost attacking it away, how perfect it was. And I really think that's just some of the best content in the game. So we want to kind of tap into that ability here and give you a few industry, impersonations, some stereotypes, right? So I don't know how much time, if you need, any think time, pause time after I give it to you, but I'm going to just give you the person, and I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the work that you come up with here. Sound good?
What should we go for? Like what? Just like are these quick hitters, like a 15, 20 second, and then we go on?
I think it's up to you. If you feel pretty compelled by a certain one and you want to go on a rant, by all means, quick hit it if you'd like. But if one of them really speaks to you and you're just like, I'm going to go off here, by all means, go for it. Yeah. So the first one I have written down is Vinny the Film Grinder, who will die defending the honor of running backs and how much they matter.
Look, guys, I'm telling you, you guys all look at your spreadsheets all day. Who's watching the tape? I'm watching the tape, okay? I pull up draft breakdown. You know what I do? Sometimes if I don't have a clip, I'll just take my cell phone camera and I'll put it on the screen. I'll record CBS just so I have that tape in real time. What, you're going to wait for the all-22 film? No, I'm grinding it on my phone after. The things you guys miss in the spreadsheets is insane. Can you see the hip swivel when you're looking in a spreadsheet? Tell me right now, what Excel function has hip swivel? You tell me, okay? You guys are bogus. If you can't see it with your eyes, it does not exist. My name's Vinny. Subscribe to my channel.
Unbelievable. Next, I'm just going to try to get him out there without laughing. Stan, the analytics truther, on why zero running back is the only way if you have a brain.
Well, here's the deal, guys. If we look at the macro win rates, okay, it is proven that if you draft zero RB and you wait to draft your second RB until round 6 or later, you are at a 13% win rate. When we look at the win rates of people who are drafting more than one running back in the first 5 rounds, that drops all the way down to a 9.8% win rate. So you tell me, how are you going to sleep at night knowing your win rate has dropped 2.6 percentage points? Okay, are you adult? Are you an idiot? Do you not have the mental fortitude to look at a roster that does not have a workhorse running back? You are mentally weak. Zero RB is the only draft strategy.
Wonderful. We'll go with Larry, the obnoxious co-worker league mate, who is once again trying to sell you his 4 average Joes for your Christian McCaffrey.
Come on, dude. Just look at your quarterback situation. I mean, you need it. Did I draft 4 quarterbacks? Right. Are they useless on the market right now? Maybe. But you need a quarterback. So how about this? I just package Phillip Rivers, okay, Kirk Cousins. Look, I'll toss in Patrick Laird and I don't know here. Fine, Kenny Stills. You tell me you're literally getting 4 players to 1. Christian McCaffrey, what if he breaks his leg? This is a trade you need to do. Trust me. Look at your quarterback situation.
Unbelievable. And the last one I have for today, I have a bunch of them written down, and this is just as money. But last one I've got is the most inspired tweeter who, through his sheer grit and grind, is so shocked and thankful for reaching the latest follower benchmark.
Guys, I know that I normally tweet this out, but I had to do a video message because I just hit 144 followers. And I know for a lot of you that might not mean much, but for me, this is everything I've been building toward, okay? I've been favoriting Matthew Berry's tweets for at least 3 years. I've been interacting with Evan Silva, and he actually favorited one of my tweets the other day. And I think I'm going to launch my own podcast. I don't know. I'm just humbled. I'm excited to be here. And if I could just get into Scott Fishbowl, my entire life would be validated. Thank you guys so much for this journey. We're going to the moon.
Absolutely love all of those, dude. That was fantastic work. Again, he did not have these to prepare at all, to be able to, the hip swivel Excel function. I mean, all of those were just complete gold. So well done off the top of the head, man. That was very impressive work. The next round is music association. So I'm going to play 5 songs for you, and just from your gut, which player comes to mind, and if you want to explain why, by all means as well. So let me kind of put my microphone a little closer. Let me know if you can hear this okay. Just want to make sure. 3, where's the file? Alrighty. Alrighty. Could you hear that one okay?
No, sorry, I didn't hear anything.
Oh, it didn't. I saw you listening. I was like, okay, you can hear that one. Shit, I thought that.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I didn't hear anything.
Oh no, my fault to keep you waiting there. Let me see how I can.
I would maybe sometimes the mix. Yeah, if you're playing it on, you have to have a mixer. But if maybe you pull it up on your phone, you can put it on.
Good call.
To the mic.
Yeah. Well, we'll skip that one for now then, because that would just, if YouTube's having like advertisements and stuff.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to be a pain in the ass, so I'll skip that for now. I'll get like a Spotify or something playlist next time. But sorry for that bust there. Maybe we can always circle back and get another one later. But I could actually, you know what? I'll just give you the song title and you tell me who comes to mind. How about that to save the segment a little bit here? So the first song is "Shape of You" by Ed Sheeran.
Shape of You. You know what? I'm going to do Leonard Fournette, whose shape is constantly changing. Sometimes he's Fat Lenny. Then we see the photo of him in the gym. People said maybe it was Photoshop. So the amorphous shape of you, Mr. Leonard Fournette.
Love it. What about Toxicity by System of a Down?
Wow, Toxicity. I mean, the first thing that just comes to mind is Tyreek Hill. In that he seems like a very toxic individual, but then he, has some bangers on the field, like, System of the Down. So there you go.
What about Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You?
I Will Always Love You. That's my guy, Patrick Laird. Whatever he does, no matter what, I will always love Patrick Laird.
Nickelback, Photograph.
Nickelback, Photograph. Okay. Odell Beckham, because the image we all have in our head of Odell Beckham is that one-handed sideline catch. It's still the thing we all think about, even though a lot of shit has transpired since then. We don't even know if he's ever going to return to form, but we will always have that photograph of Odell Beckham making the insane catch.
Love it. And the last one I got here, this one probably would have worked better with sound, but Hanson Mbop.
Let's see. That's Christian McCaffrey, because you got the 101 and you have no concerns in the world because you're just humming that tune, that very catchy tune, as you draft him 101 without any further deliberation.
Love it, love it. Thank you for rolling with that one too. I apologize the music wasn't ready, but that'll be good to know for next one. I loved all those, nailed them. And then the last one, I got 10 adjectives here. And as I was alluding to, they all are going to refer to taste. So I'll give you the word, and you just give me who comes to mind and why. Okay. First one, juicy.
Juicy. Okay, I will say George Kittle is juicy. He's a grown-ass man. He's going to score you lots of fantasy points. I love having that tight end 1 locked into my roster. Juicy George Kittle.
Buttery.
I'm going to go with Amari Cooper, coming in and out of the breaks, putting defensive backs on the skates, just a buttery route runner.
Slimy.
Who is a guy that just kind of gets it done in a gross way? Carlos Hyde. He just never goes away. He just kind of slimy, gets his production. Carlos Hyde.
Tart.
This is a guy that it kind of has a harsh taste, but is still kind of desirable. It sounds like a best ball wide receiver. It sounds like Deshaun Jackson or Will Fuller. It's like, sometimes it can be delicious and sometimes it can be pretty tart.
Creamy.
Creamy. I think of somebody that's really smooth. Keenan Allen or say Jarvis Landry, where cream kind of implies slowness, but it's also smooth. They get the job done, but they're not the most explosive athletes.
What about Smokey?
Smokey, I mean, that one's easy, right? Smokey John Brown, that's his nickname. That might be cheating, so I'll go with Smokey. And it's kind of, he's got the cloud of dust behind him as he speeds off.
Yeah, that was a gimme. What about Peppery?
Peppery. Okay, this is someone that gets peppered with targets. Julian Edelman is Mr. Peppery, although we'll find out if it holds true with Jared Stidham.
I hope so. As a Pats fan, we'll see there. I'm sure that nickname's going to stick too. Julian Peppery Edelman there on the field.
Julian Pepperman could work.
Yeah, absolutely. What about Zesty?
Zesty. Okay. I'm thinking of like a jitterbug running back, someone that's like really quick and elusive. I'm going to go with Austin Eckler. He just has kind of a zesty game with those cuts.
Last two here, Melty.
Melty. To me, this is someone who melts under the pressure. Who is a player that has historically come up short in big spots? Let's say Matt Ryan. He melted that 28-3 lead that they had against the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
And the last one here, Burnt
toast. This is a guy that is dusted. You do not want to draft him anymore. Let's go with another Patriot. I think Sony Michel is burnt.
Lovely. A great. I love all the analysis in there too. Like it all fits. Every single one you said, I hadn't even pictured who I would say, but I'm like, all of those just make such perfect sense. Of course, Amari Cooper's buttery. Like I don't know why, but I loved it. Those are all beautiful. Well done there. In the last segment we have here, I do this with every Wolf that comes on. We call it kind of the no huddle offense. Just similar to what we've been doing with quick hit, gut reactions. You're welcome to expand on any if you feel compelled. But if you just want to give the name, that's also perfectly fine too. And just going to run you through, I think it's 20 total questions here, and just give me what first pops up. All right. Mm-hmm. The first one is, after McCaffrey, the number 2 player in fantasy should be
Saquon Barkley.
The next Dalvin Cook or round 2 running back who's going to be top 5 in 2021 will be
Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Your favorite fantasy team name that you've ever had or seen?
Okay, so I normally don't go super punny, but the one that comes to mind, I did have a fantasy basketball team a long time ago that had Gordon Hayward and Stephen Curry, and I believe I named it Curry on my Hayward son.
Love it. The next Chris Godwin or round 4 to 5 wide receiver who explodes into the elite will be?
That's got to be DJ Chark.
2020's Mark Andrews or breakout tight end will be?
TJ Hawkinson.
Who is your most hated NFL player specifically for fantasy reasons?
I would say probably Larry Fitzgerald. I feel like he's burned me. I'm just always on the wrong side of Larry Fitzgerald.
If there was somehow another Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes, it would be
Kyler Murray.
Which early rounder, first or second, is going to bust the hardest?
Ezekiel Elliott.
Who gained the most fantasy value during the 2020 offseason?
Well, just on the Twitter hype machine alone, it's got to be Deontay Johnson.
Conversely, who lost the most?
Man, probably someone on the Patriots. I think Edelman has dropped a good bit, or maybe a running back like Kerryon Johnson with Swift. He's fallen pretty far.
I won't leave rounds 5 or 6 without blank.
Christian Kirk.
Do you play Settlers of Catan?
I have never played Settlers of Catan even once. I'm not even anti. I just I guess the circles I've traveled in, it has never popped up. I've been at parties where it has been out, and I thought maybe I will break my cherry, and it just hasn't happened.
So you should break it soon, my friend. Great, the best game ever made. I just like to ask every expert to see who also plays. The next sophomore wide receiver after or even before A.J. Brown should be
Terry McLaurin.
Target hogs or workhorse backs?
Target hogs all day.
Alvin Kamara, James Conner, Austin Eckler were all top 5 RBs after round 7. In 2020, that'll be...
I believe he's probably on the round 6, 7 ADP fringe. I'll say J.K. Dobbins.
What are your ideal league settings?
Yeah, I love Superflex. I love tight end premium, and I love kind of deep benches that even have a taxi squad too. So I would say, and I will say I've come to love best ball because I do not like managing leagues in settings. So I'll say a best ball tight end premium Superflex league with some taxi squad spots if it's dynasty.
Love it. After Michael Thomas and Devontae Adams, owners should draft blank at wide receiver.
It pains me. Mr. Toxicity himself, Tyreek Hill.
Blank was the most important coaching move for fantasy, specifically for blank's value.
Oh, man. So I'm not generally a coach truther, but Jason Garrett is now with Saquon Barkley, right, in New York. So I think that could be interesting because they kind of underutilized him last year, and we know Jason Garrett has no problems feeding a workhorse.
Absolutely. Do running backs matter?
No.
What is the funniest last place punishment or side bet you've either witnessed or been a part of?
So I actually have never been part of a traditional last place punishment, but back when I was doing my podcast, the Fantasy Football Comedy Hour, we would do weekly DFS 4-man contests, and the loser had to do stuff. And my buddy Brian had to do a 5-minute fantasy-based stand-up set for us. I could probably dig up the audio, but watching my buddy just have to do fantasy jokes to us was pretty enjoyable.
That's awesome. And we'll wrap it up here with your boldest 2020 fantasy prediction, and then just a reminder of where our listeners can connect with you and find your work.
Yeah, I've said this one now. I believe this is the second time I've said it on record, but I really kind of want to associate it with me, so I am going to say it here. I apologize that this isn't maybe the scoop, depending on when you put this out, but Christian Kirk outscores DeAndre Hopkins this year.
Ooh, man.
Is that spicy enough?
That is as spicy as they come. Wow. Love it. And could you mind just dropping one more time where our listeners can kind of find you and find your work and everything?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter way too much at Peter Overzet. Trying to get the TikTok rolling. It's P Overzet there. And then just going to be doing a lot of kind of shows and podcasts this year. My buddy Pat Carrain, who writes for Establish the Run, we're launching our high stakes podcast, Ship Chasing, soon. So you can keep an eye out for that. I do Lulz with Brian Hooper. I do the Swolecast with Roto Grinder. So lots of places, probably too many places. No one should consume that much Peter Overzet, but it is what it is.
Hopefully I could consume it all day, especially with the combination of humor with the great analysis. I mean, it's always fantastic work. So Peter, thank you so much for giving us your time today. And just hopefully we'll stay in touch, man. This was fantastic. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Absolutely. See you later, man. Have a good one.